Hey everybody, my name is Amanda Zieba, and I'm so excited that you're here to check out the November pre-planned calendar that is a part of the Word Nerd Collaborative teacher membership. I'm going to screen share here in just a second and show you all of the things. This is the biggest pre-planned calendar we've ever had. It's over 200 pages. It's jam-packed full of relevant, timely, rigorous goodness. Mostly the most important part is that it's fun for your students and that it's already done for you. Yay for those two things. I know that you are busy and that you have a billion things on your plate. That's part of why I do what I do. So I'm going to do a high level overview of the resources in this calendar rather than get stuck in the nitty gritty. But if you have questions about any of the things you hear about, feel free to email me. I will put my email address down in the video description box so that you can find that easily. And also, if you are not a part of the Word Nerd Collaborative yet and you are watching this and you want to join, I'm going to put a link for that down in the video description box as well. And also a link for you to try a sample of this pre-planned calendar for free. So definitely check that out. I'm glad you all are here. Let's do this. So when you go to the Word Nerd Collaborative website members, the menu is down here. You can go there. Those of you who are not members yet, click this big yellow bar and you can get that free sample. So let's look at what is in the November calendar. Alrighty. As always, I start out with a letter to you, telling you just kind of like where I'm at mentally, and if you're feeling similarly, some hacks and some strategies to get you through that. But mostly, I'm excited because November in my world means a little bit more resting, a little bit more slowing down than usual. Table of contents will give you an overview of everything we are going to be talking about. Um, First chapter Friday overview, brain break overview, writing prompt overview, lesson overview, and additional resource overview, and then all the good stuff in there. If you click on any one of these underlined words, it's just going to take you right to that page to get there very quickly. Members, I've got some dates and links here for our next monthly planning session and also our November lunch bunch, and then the private Facebook group where we hang out and chit chat about all the teachery things, your calendar, and then here we go into the goodness. So here are the first chapter Fridays that we are going to feature this month: American Royals by Catherine McGee, Ghost by Jason Reynolds, Out of My Mind by Sharon Draper, Jefferson's Sons by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley, and Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This month has a little bit of something for everybody. Short books, long books, historical fiction, alternate history, science fiction, books that are movies, series, standalones, like really like a lot of really great things. And I'm excited to dive in and tell you a little bit more about each of these stories in just a little bit. The brain breaks that are featured this month are election trivia. This is brand new. I just finished this past weekend. That would be great to teach kids about the upcoming election and how it got to be in November and what happens on that day and how the Electoral College works and all of that. Veterans Day, which is November 11th. So another great historical event and information there. Then these two are a little bit more fun, some NFL trivia and Thanksgiving trivia. Again, we'll get to all of the worksheets down there in a little bit. Here's an overview for our writing prompts. Again, we have one for every day of the week, always ending with a free Write Friday, so students can either continue writing something that they have enjoyed earlier in the week and earlier in the month, or just write about whatever they're feeling in the moment. And we know that middle schoolers have all the feels. There is a printable sheet for each of these prompts and also a series of slides that you can click so that you can just project them on the board if you don't want to use a lot of paper or if you have like a paper budget, as I have had in past districts where you only get so many sheets of paper per student. There's a slide version so you can skip the printables as well. The lessons that I have jam-packed in here for you this month are a short story collection tied to specific CC SSELA standards, a ChatGPT lesson that is super relevant and is going to help you maybe get on board and feel better about this new AI technology. And then A Long Walk to Water is an amazing novel. And we'll talk more about what that novel is, but I have the entire unit. I used to teach this book in 7th grade, and so I have everything from anticipation guide to final review activity, all with everything in between already there for you. Our additional resources this month focus on NaNoWriMo. November's National Novel Writing Month, and so a lot of writing resources for you in the form of videos and some practice pages, and then I round it all out with some recommended reading posters in the topics of all abilities, so characters who have a wide variety of physical and mental abilities, and also books that focus on characters dealing with grief and death. So, all right, let's do our first chapter Fridays, and let me actually go off screen here. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of these stories. So the first one up is American Royals by Catherine McGee. This is the first book in a series of 4. And I loved them. I was a social studies minor, so I'm kind of like a little bit of a history nerd. And so this book, the premise of it is, what if when they asked George Washington to be king, he said yes instead of no, and America is a monarchy? And now, for the first time ever, we're about to have a queen. And everybody thinks that they would feel better if this queen were married. And she's like, no, thanks, I got this. But her parents are like, no, 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 we're going to set you up with some suitable males who could be your king consort. And she's really not all about that idea. She would rather marry her revere guard, which is what they call the Secret Service. And so it's like a love triangle, but there's also like her siblings who are involved in this. They are like the spare to the heir, and family drama. And it's great. If you like drama, if you like romance, if you like little tidbits of history, you are going to love this book, American Royals by Catherine McGee. Next up is Ghost by Jason Reynolds. I think this is one of the first books that Jason wrote that like really put him on the map and on the scene as an amazing writer for young adults. I'm going to read you the back blurb just real quick because it does a really great job of concisely telling you what it's about. Running. That's all Ghost, real name Castle Cranshaw, has ever known. But never for a track team. Nope. His game has always been basketball. But when Ghost impulsively challenges an elite sprinter to a race and wins, the Olympic medalist track coach sees he has something. Crazy natural talent. Thing is, Ghost has something else. A lot of anger and a past that he tries to outrun. Can Ghost harness his raw talent for speed and meld with the team, or will his past finally catch up with him? Ghost is the first book in Jason Reynolds' explosive track series about a fast but fiery group of kids who have a shot at the Junior Olympics. But they have a lot to prove first, to one another and to themselves. As you can see, as I turn this book around, it's very short. And the crazy thing, I don't feel like this is a spoiler, but there's this race at the end of the book. And we don't get to know who wins. So then you have to pick up the next book that follows one of the other major characters in the story and hear the whole thing from their perspective. And then the same race is at the end of that book. And you don't get to know who wins the race because then you have to go to the next book. And it's like the perfect cliffhanger ever. If you have a student who maybe doesn't love reading, but they like sports, maybe they've got a hard life, but they want to do the right thing, like this book is so good and they will love it. Out of My Mind by Sharon Draper. I picked this book because later this month it comes out as a movie, and I know that that's always very motivating and encouraging and exciting to students. This book is about a girl named Melody who has cerebral palsy. She is in a wheelchair and she cannot speak. Everyone assumes that Melody is stupid, that she has a very low IQ. So when she goes to school, they try to teach her the ABCs, and they use a lot of picture cards, and they talk down to her like she knows absolutely nothing. But the crazy thing is that Melody is brilliant. In fact, she has a photographic memory and she knows a lot of things, and mostly she's just bored. But in the process of the story, she gets this thing called a meta talker, which helps her take her thoughts and produce them out loud through this technology and this machine. And what everyone around her comes to realize is that she is brilliant. She gets involved with her fifth grade quiz bowl team. And you can imagine that there's a lot of different reactions to this. Some people are like, this is the coolest stinking thing ever. This girl can't even talk, but she knows all these things. And then there's some other people who are like, I don't really like that girl who looks like that is smarter than me. And then there's like this clash and this tension. And this book is heartbreaking, but uplifting and inspiring and so great. I think, there are some books that I say like that everybody should read. Everybody on the planet should read this book. It is incredible. And I'm so excited that it's going to be turned into a movie. Next up is Jefferson's Sons by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. This is historical fiction about the children that Thomas Jefferson had with his slave, Sally Hemings. And he has told those children that when they turn 21, he will emancipate them. So they all live out in Monticello on Jefferson's property, on his plantation. But his slave children do not live in the house with him. They live in Sally Hemings's house in the slave quarters. And he's kind to them. But he also like does not they're still slaves. And so he's told them, when you are turned 21, I will emancipate you. I will make you free. And he has done that for some of the older siblings, but our main character, Eston, he is really worried that Thomas is going to die before he turns 21, and then what will happen to him. This is based on a lot of research. It is historically accurate. And I picked it because, it's a president, right? I picked American royals because American politics, like November, we're in election season. And so that's why I picked it. But the other reason I picked this book is it has gorgeous writing, and it is an example, great, exemplar model for high quality text. So super great. And then the last one that I picked is Cinder. And this book is just fun. It's kind of a beast, right? But like most fantasy science fiction books are large. It's the first in a series of 4, and it is a version of a fractured fairy tale. It is the Cinderella story. Except for Cinderella's a cyborg. She is half robot, half human, because she had a terrible accident and the doctors rebuilt her body using electronic parts. There's still a stepmother, there's still terrible stepsisters, but there's also a plague, there's still a prince, there's still a shoe, but it's just told in this different location, different time period, and a hint more adventure. The really cool thing about this, so this is the first book. There are 3 more. The second one is called Scarlet, and that is told from Red Riding Hood's perspective. The third one is called Cress, and that is told from Rapunzel's perspective. And then the last one is called Winter, and I think that's Sleeping Beauty. I can't remember. It's been so long since I've read them, but it just is such a great, fresh perspective on these fairy tales. I listened to this series on Audible, and they were fantastic. If you're doing a fractured fairy tale unit, if you've got a fairy tale lover in your classroom, if girl power, like total girl power series, and it's so great. I loved it. I think of all 3, Cress was my favorite, the 3rd book in the series, but this one is fantastic. So those are the first chapter Fridays for the month. I hope your students love them. Okay, let's get back into the brain breaks. I told you a little bit about which 4 we're going to be present, but I'll just want to quick show you a few extra things. So in the guide, we still have the leaderboard for you to print out and use every month. I like to keep track as we go through the month. It just helps build like that gamification, that camaraderie, that like classroom environment magic. With the election trivia, I have also created for you a nonfiction 1-pager. So a lot of the facts in this election trivia are things that students would not know unless they've studied them in an American government class. A lot of it is not necessarily like common everyday knowledge. And so what I thought would be fun is to give you this nonfiction 1-pager for students to experience and read before they play the trivia game. And you can do this a couple of different ways. You could give every student a worksheet or a one pager and say, I want you to highlight what you think are the 10 most important facts. So don't just be like, here, just read this. Like, let's gamify it, right? Like, let's make this exciting. Or you could give a paper to a small group of students and tell them they each are responsible for one paragraph, learning the information in that, and then teaching it to their classmates. And the reason that they're motivated to do a good job teaching their classmates or their group mates their facts is that then we'll do the trivia game and then they can win because they've done such a good job of imparting that information. So lots of different ways to implement this, but it's a little bit of reading, a little bit of learning, and a whole lot of fun. Also, in a previous 5 Good Things email I sent you was a podcast episode from EB Academics that had 3 really fun review games. And I think the review game of mystery baskets would also work really, really well with this trivia video. So I will be sure to link that episode down below so you can listen for even more ways to implement this. So with all of the trivia videos we've got, they could just write their answers on scrap paper, totally fine. If you want this kind of a more formal answer sheet, you can do that. And then for each one, I also have, the printable questions and answers all on one sheet, so that you wouldn't necessarily even need the video if you didn't want the video. I like the video, but if you didn't want the video, there's this. So that's election trivia. We also have Veterans Day trivia. So learning about how Armistice Day came about and veterans in our country, and some history behind some of the wars we've participated in. Lots of good stuff. This would be great. You could pass this off to your social studies teacher, or if you do like any co-teaching or cross-curricular stuff, this would be an awesome opportunity for you to work with them. The next one is the NFL trivia, and this is all about, my family's favorite sport to watch, football and the teams and the history of the sport and some logo information and some favorite players, things like how was the huddle created, which stadiums have turf grass versus real grass, all sorts of great little nuggets of factoid information there. And then the last trivia video is Thanksgiving trivia, all about this holiday. I love leading into this holiday in school because we can really focus on the gratitude and the history of it. There's not a lot of religion associated with Thanksgiving, so it makes it a little bit easier and more digestible to teach in school, or to at least lean into and have some fun with. So those are the trivia videos. Next up are the writing worksheets, or the writing prompts. Just like all the packets, the pre-planned calendars past, we've got these sheets in here that you'll use again and again and again for Free Write Friday. The rubrics, the gem and opportunity sheets for students to give each other feedback. And then we have the writing prompts. So for each week, we have 4 prompts, and then Friday is the Free Write Friday. I tell you the title of the prompt and then what skills you can expect to practice within that. I know that people have different days off for Thanksgiving break, but I have given you still a prompt for every single day of November. And so what you might want to do ahead of time is go through and pick out the ones that you like the best, because you might not actually be in school for the entire 3rd and 4th week of November because of Thanksgiving. So you can go in there and just pick out the ones you want, or maybe eliminate the ones that aren't as applicable to your current standards that you're studying in your curriculum. But again, for each one, we have the printable worksheet that has the prompt, and then the space for writing, and then also the rubric. And then each one also has, there's a full set of slides for this whole month. If you want to go into those slides and click File, Make a Copy, then you can arrange them to be in the order that you want them to be for your month, if you don't want to go in the order that I have listed them in. So you, with any of these resources within Canva or in Google Slides, just click File, Make a Copy, and then you can do your own thing with them. So I'm not going to go through each of these slides because again, I know that you are busy, and we don't need to spend our time looking at all of these prompts individually. What I would love to do is dive deeper into the lessons that I have created and provided here for you. And the first one is a collection of 2 short stories. There are eventually going to be 6, maybe 10, but I just wanted to start you off with 2. So the first sheet, and whether you share this with your students or this is just a nice overview and review of you, but or review for you, it tells you, what is a short story and what are some key characteristics of a short story that differentiate it from a novel, or another piece of writing, and what you might want your students to be able to pick out and identify about a short story when comparing it to those other lengths and those other genres. All of the short stories, or both of the short stories in this collection, cover the 6.10 reading literature standard, which means that they're reading at their grade level. And then also W6.4, which means that they can produce clear and coherent writing specific to a task assigned to them. Each short story has additional standards, 1 to 3 standards connected to it, but know that RL 610 and W 6.4 are covered by every single one of the stories in here. So I have also provided an updated rubric. And so it looks the same as the writing prompt rubric, except I added this category at the bottom that says focus standard, and then you can write in what that standard is, and you can assess whether students have done it well, are starting to figure it out, or they have not shown that skill. So you can do that on the bottom. Okay, so the first short story is called A Sky Full of Maybe, and each of the short stories has a teacher page, which gives you information that you need to know to teach this. It gives you a blurb of what the story is about, word count, reading level, genre, and then the specific standard that is going to be addressed with this short story in the extension activities. And then also a QR code to listen to the story. I have read all of these out loud on YouTube, so if students want to follow along. And you might be saying, hey, Amanda, I thought you said that these were going to be grade level, and they are going to increase in grade level reading ability as we move on, but I want to make a really important point here, and that is that if we are assessing whether our students know how to do a 6th grade language or writing standard or reading informational text standard, we cannot give them a text at their instructional or frustration level, because then when we ask them to do something and they cannot do it, we don't know if it's because they couldn't read and understand the material or if they don't know how to do the skill that we're asking. So it's really important that when we are assessing skills at grade level, we lower the text level that we are asking our students to work with. It might be counterintuitive to what you're thinking, but we cannot assess whether they can read and whether they can do the skill at the same time. It would be like giving a 6th grade student a math assessment that is written at the 8th grade level. If they can't do the skill, we don't know if they can't do the skill or if they didn't understand the instructions. So kind of keep that in mind, and do not be turned off by the fact that it says that it's at a 4.7 reading level. Each story has some student pages that you will print and hand out. They have the title, they have the blurb telling them what the story is going to be about. They've got that QR code to listen. And then we have the text right there on the page. And we also have a place for them to make some text annotations. And again, annotation is just a fancy word for writing down what you're thinking. So what questions do you have? What connections can you make to your life, to other stories, to the world at large? What things do you predict? What just like comments do you have? Like, holy cow, I did not expect that. Anything that's going on up here, write it down on the page. And if students say, I'm not thinking anything, that is their clue and your prompt to tell them to go back and start again. Because if we're not thinking anything, we are not comprehending. So utilize that space. You can see the story is very short. It's just those 2 pages. And then there are some extension activities. This one is focusing on vocabulary acquisition. So I have pulled out 4 vocabulary words from the story: coerced, relentless, unquenchable, and vigil. Students can either choose the one they want or you can assign them. And then you need to ask them to complete this chart with a definition, a synonym, an antonym, a person who exemplifies that word or utilizes that word, a situation in which that word would be applicable, and a visual representation of that word. I have the answer key below so I can show you more what that looks like. And then the second activity is genre identification and exploration. So what clues tell you this book belongs in the genre of science fiction? And then you can use those ideas to design and draw a book cover for A Sky Full of Maybe. Be sure to include a title, author, and several genre-specific elements. If you're struggling with this idea, look in your library for other science fiction books and study their covers for similarities, and then include them in your own. On the answer key pages, I've given you these charts fully filled out, so you don't even need to go and look for those things. I've got them there, not saying that these are the only right answers, but they are several that you can use. So I've got that done for all 4 words. And then I included some science fiction book covers here to give you some ideas again, so you didn't have to go hunting to find them. Answers for this will vary, but if they can identify the elements and then they can display them, that is, you can give them points. The second story is called Digging in the Dirt, about a kid who goes to an archaeology camp. She loves archaeology. That was me. I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was in middle school. But then when she's at camp, she is digging and she is really stinking bored. And it makes her sad because she really wants to be an archaeologist. But she can't overlook the fact that she's frustrated and bored. We've got the word count, the grade level, the genre is realistic fiction. And in this one, we are identifying theme and providing evidence for that theme. Spoiler alert, the theme is positivity and persistence. We've got that link, QR code to listen. We have the student pages. And then the comprehension questions following up. This is the extension activity. So what challenges does Maya face at archaeology camp? If you were at archaeology camp, what discovery would you hope to make while digging in the dirt? It was Maya's dream to go to archaeology camp. If you could go to any kind of camp, what would you choose and why? Persistence is a theme throughout the story. Find and share 2 pieces of evidence that show proof of this theme, and tell about a time when you needed to be persistent, as well as a result of your efforts. And so you can kind of see that I've layered the questions here as far as like, what did you learn from the story and how does that relate to your real life? And hopefully this increases the engagement factor because it's not just about the story. It's pulling in the students' own personal interests in like in every other kind of question format. So hopefully they will get a little bit more buy-in for that. And then I've got the answer key here ready to roll for you. The next activity is an AI, humans versus AI writing assignments. And now I know that there's a lot of feelings, some big feelings about ChatGPT and about AI. And I, for a long time, had been on the side of like, it's going to kill us all. And I was a reluctant explorer when it came to learning about this. But I listened to a podcast that completely changed my mind about it. And the more I hear about it, the more I'm willing to learn and to experiment. I recently went to a business entrepreneur accelerator thing. And they said there that AI will not replace humans, but humans who use AI will replace humans who do not. So there are just things that this tool can do for us quickly, efficiently, but it can't do anything without us. It needs our ideas. It needs our experiences. It cannot make something without the prompt. It cannot do something without someone telling it what to do. It cannot generate or come up with ideas if nobody is putting those ideas in there. It also is a tool and an amplifier like anything else. Think about money. If you are a good person and you want to do good things and you have a lot of money, that money is an amplifier. It can help you do bigger, better, more larger, more far-reaching good things. if you're a bad person and you are trying to do bad things, that money is also an amplifier and can help you do those bigger, badder things quicker, faster, farther. Okay, so AI is a tool that needs humans and it needs good input. So I explain all of that and more in this video. And if you're really, really reluctant, I just encourage you to give it, just give it a try. It's like 5-6 minutes, okay? And then if you're still no thank you, you can skip this activity. But I hope that you will continue, because the reality is that our students are going to use AI, okay? But we can teach them to use it in a way that is effective, in a way that is ethical, rather than leave them to their own devices. And that's what these activities are going to help us do. So the first one is going to look at a couple of newspaper articles in which technology has gone wrong. For example, this self-driving car was making some deliveries and drove through wet cement. A human likely would not have done that. This Mars rover burned up because they let the AI trajectory, map, path, whatever, do the thing. But the scientists who were inputting the data were from 2 different countries who used 2 different systems of measurements, and the computer thought it knew what it was doing, and they thought it knew what it was doing, and they just let it roll. But really, if they would have had a human doing it, they would have known this data isn't working. We need to account for the fact that we have 2 systems of measurement going on here. And then a tourist drove right into a lake because they fully trusted their GPS. And really, if we would just look up and use our eyeballs, we would not have ended up in the lake. So there's just some stories that show humans are in fact smarter than computers, to give students that perspective. There are some comprehension questions asking them about that, to process, to reflect on those articles, and what are some things that computers can do that humans cannot? What are some things that humans can do that computers cannot? What's a job that you hope a computer will take over? What's a job you hope a computer will never take over? So just thinking, right? We just have to explore our thoughts on this before we use the tool. The other thing I'll quick say is, growing up, you probably heard this too. Your math teacher told you, you will never carry a calculator in your pocket. Hey, guess what? I do. And a map and a translator and a whole bunch of other things that we thought we'd never ever have. So don't be that person. Don't be that person. Okay. The next is using it as a revision tool. So the prompt here says, I asked ChatGPT to write a paragraph about why humans are smarter than computers, and here's the response. Then I asked it to write it again, but lower the vocabulary level to make it more easily comprehended by a young reader. So we've got these 2 different versions, and we're going to ask students to evaluate and compare both of these, pulling out the things that are well done, the things that are poorly done, the things that it missed, because it's not perfect, right? We shouldn't take whatever it spits out verbatim. We need to realize that it's going to be incomplete because it doesn't have a lifetime of human experience to dwell on. And so we need to realize that. And so this will help them analyze, is what it's putting out good? What parts can I use? What parts should I leave behind? The second activity, it takes that even further. Here is a recipe, 5 steps explaining how to make homemade mac and cheese. That's what I asked ChatGPT, and it spit it out for me. And I want students to evaluate what's well done, what's poorly done. Specifically think about formatting and organization, keywords, clarity of directions, word choice. You can highlight on the actual recipe what's good and what needs, gems and opportunities, just like they give feedback to one another. And then also make the list here on the left side, right side of the paper. Then they're going to have the opportunity to write their own set of instructions using what you learned from that activity of knowing what's good about a set of instructions and what's not good about the set of instructions. Now let's write your own set. And it could be a recipe. That might be the first thing that people go to, but it also might be, like how to make a paper airplane. So like directions for how to do something other than a recipe, or like how to prepare when you're training for a belt change in karate. Like I'm gonna go for my orange belt. I'm not really. I'm just using this as an example. I was a gymnast. But like how do you prepare for that karate testing? Or how do you move through those things in your karate testing? So something they're supremely interested in, high interest for themselves, teach us how to do it by writing out the instructions, using that sample AI generated text, showing you what you need to do and what you need to consider that they left out. Okay. And then finally, I've got two signs here. Humans are smarter than computers. One is black and white and one is color. If you want to have students do some like mindfulness minute, like brain break coloring, that would be fun. So those are two of the three lessons. The last one that I'm just going to do like the briefest overview of is A Long Walk to Water is a short novel, two perspectives. It's called A Long Walk to Water by Linda Sue Park, and it focuses on the civil war in Sudan and the water conflict and the orphan conflict that arose from this event. It's a fantastic book. I taught it in 7th grade. I think that it's a very popular book to use in middle school. Personally, I like 7th grade and up for it. I like to keep my 6th graders little babies for just like as long as I possibly can. And this book has some hard things associated with war, violence and death and some just tragic, devastating survival circumstances that I personally don't want my 6th graders to have to read about yet. So I would save it till 7th or 8th grade when they're just a little bit more world wise. In this unit, we have the first chapter read aloud video for you. We have at the end, there is a turn and talk activity that asks students 10 major questions about the book. Practicing your speaking and listening standard, the question will show up for 1 minute. Students can jot down what they'd like to say about that question and then turn and talk to a partner for 2 minutes, really emphasizing the fact that like this person's going to say something and you need to listen and then respond with your own thoughts rather than just only think about what you have to say. So this is great for reviewing the content of the book after you're done reading, and also practicing like good speaking and listening skills. So that's at the end. Also in here, 3 other things I'm going to tell you about. An anticipation guide activity to help students get ready for the book and give them some hints about what topics are going to show up in this story. There is a reading guide for you. So if you've never taught this novel before and you're not quite sure how to break it up, I have broken it up into 9 days. So just a little under 3 weeks of in-class activities. Then there are chapter quizzes. So for each chapter, it's just a 5-question, real quick comprehension quiz to see if students are following along. And I know that sometimes when we do class novels, it's hard for students to stay motivated, to stay on track, and to stay all the way through, so that if we kind of give them this little nudge with these quizzes, these points, it's a little bit of an accountability tool. I find it helps them stay on track. Also, if you choose to print them, students can keep them, and it's like a really quick way to like review what did you read last time before you jump into this new section. Or if you're doing some sort of writing essay or end of book project, this filtering through these quizzes is a quick way for them to remember what they have already read. So there's a quiz for each of the 18 chapters and then an answer key. The other piece that I have in here for you are some journal rights. I have a journal right for each chapter, and it will tell them what day of the reading that we are on. So for example, chapter 1 and 2, they have the day 1 circled. There is a prompt related specifically to the content of that chapter. And then there is the rubric as usual. So we've got these for all 18 chapters. And then also at the end, I've got 5 different journal rights that you can use at any point in time in the story. Let's say you're looking through them and you're like, oh, Amanda, I don't like the one for chapter 7. No worries, that's fine. Take that one out and put in one of these 5 other kind of generic ones that still relate to the content of the book, but that can be done at any time. Or maybe you use these as like your final writing assessment after we're all the way done and through. So those are the lessons that are there for you. Last but not least, we've got some additional resources. Here are 3 videos with some writing tips for you, how to help reluctant writers. An advice from author video. I asked these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 authors where they get their ideas. So that's oftentimes for students a really hard place to just get going and get started. So we've got just real quick, maybe like 30 to 45-second clips from each of these authors about where they get their ideas. That might be great to show at the beginning of a writing lesson. And then this is a direct instruction video word choice in action, in which I show you some text models and how the word choice works in there. It's not always using the expensive $10 word. Sometimes it's about where the word is placed or how many times the word is used. So that's a great direct instruction video you can use right in class. The next additional resource, are some synonym practice pages. There are 10 passages. And it just has a short little story, 10 words underlined. In the word bank, we have 10 synonyms. They just need to figure out which synonym matches each word. There are 10. So what I might do is and it depends on the grade level of your students, right? You know them and their abilities best. But maybe for the first 3 passages, I would give them the word bank. And then maybe for the next 3, I would cut the word bank off. And then say, like, you need to come up with these using a thesaurus. And then for them, the last 4, I would cut the word bank off and tell them they have to try to come up with it on their own without even using a thesaurus. You could really easily gamify these, working in small groups, doing them as a bell ringer, doing them as an exit ticket, keeping track on a leaderboard, again, a score. You could change the task to say, make this story funny, make this story scary. Instead of using the words that are underlined, how can you choose words that will make it funny, that will make it scary? And then you can talk about tone and mood as it relates to word choice. So lots of different ways that you can implement these fun 1-pagers. Again, there are 10 of them, and then there's the answer keys for you at the end. The last thing I have for you are 2 reading recommendation poster sets. One is All Abilities. I know that sometimes when a student reads a book and they're like, I love this, I want more. And I kind of thought about that with Sharon Draper's Out of My Mind, with the main character having cerebral palsy, having a different ability than most of the students in her class. So each of the books on this poster are similar, featuring different abilities. I'm not going to book talk each one, but really quickly, Hear Me is touches on a student who needs cochlear implants, so hearing. Hello Universe also has a deaf character. House Arrest, it's not the main character, it's the little brother of the main character who has, I want to say cerebral palsy as well, but it really impacts his life in a massive way. In Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus, the main character does not have any arms at all. And the story is about how that affects her life. In The Running Dream, a track star loses her leg in an accident and has to get a prosthetic. The War That Saved My Life, the main character has a club foot. She also has reactive attachment disorder. So both a physical and a mental illness that dramatically impact her life. And then in Wonder, the main character has extreme facial deformities related to a specific syndrome, and how that impacts the way that people impact him. So all of these are fantastic books. I love them so much. And then the books about death and grief, and it isn't always fun to think about, but part of the reason I love books is that they help me do hard things. They help me figure out what to say, how to act, what to do. And maybe it's me and my own hard thing, or maybe it's somebody in my life who's having a hard thing. And so death and grief are really freaking hard, y'all. And so these books help characters know they're not alone. They're not the only person who's ever dealt with that thing or felt the way that they're feeling. And two, here are some ways you can maybe navigate this. It's a big list. I'm not gonna go through each and every one of these, but what I will tell you really fast is that Canyon's Edge, Evilise Explains It All, and Out of the Dust, and Red, White, and Whole are all novels in verse. So if you need something fast and accessible for reluctant readers or maybe readers who struggle a bit, those four are going to be amazing. The Night Diary is an epistolary, so it's told entirely in letters, which is something I love. And I would say Coyote Sunrise, Remarkable Journey of Coyote Sunrise is the best book I've ever read when it comes to characterization. Coyote and her dad Rodeo are the most real characters I have ever read on the page. And so if you need an exemplar text about for characterization, pick that one. Okay, so you guys, we are done. That is the end. I talked fast. I didn't keep it short. I mean, I tried really hard, but I know this went on for a bit. If you have any questions about any of the resources in this calendar, please reach out and email me. If you are not a member yet and you want to be, check out the free sample below. Happy November. I hope that all is as well as it can be in your world and that, like me, you are heading into a season of rest and a little bit of hibernation. That's what I've got for you today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll